What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Southeastern 14, another edition of Bets and Ball Games with Greeson and Edwards. We're coming to you on Friday morning, May 31st, almost 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Before we get going, let's tell you about Bet Online being your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs. This postseason, every stat, every matchup, even live odds while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head head to the website today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, that's all caps BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. All right. What's happening? Mr. Greeson joining us from the Chattanooga Times Free Press. How you doing?
Just getting ready for June. It's amazingly pleasant as we head into summer. It's
It won't
high
last.
60s, low 70s this morning in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah, not that hot and sticky here yet either, but not for
It's
long.
coming. It's coming.
It's coming. And DJ Wagner is coming to Arkansas. And I was talking to my friend Wes Moore, who I've done radio with in Arkansas, and I was asking him, I was like, so man, you guys got 5 scholarships available. They've got 8 guys on scholarship. And apparently Cal's been doing the rounds at all the, Arkansas booster clubs and whatever, Little Rock, Fayetteville, wherever else. And apparently he is floating this idea of just going with these 8 scholarship players, surrounding them by walk-ons. Apparently he's got some former Kentucky players that are going to be grad assistants that can practice with the team. And he's saying, I normally only play about 8 guys anyway, and everybody will be happy with their shots, their playing time, etc. And then somebody asks a question, what about injuries? And he goes, well, if we have 2 injuries, our 6 guys will be even happier. And then I'm just thinking, well, foul trouble, coach? I mean, I get where he's coming from, but foul trouble and injuries are a part of the game. Any thoughts? I know you've been high on DJ Wagner, and they finally got him this past Sunday.
I think DJ Wagner is going to be an all-SEC player. I think defensively he's as good as anybody this side of Zakai Ziegler, guarding in space and on the perimeter. The ceiling he has is an NBA lottery pick. I mean, I think he's that kind of talent. And he's one of those kids you can build around. And in truth, I kind of tip my visor to Cal, who I think has underachieved greatly over the last decade, because he is going to try something different. Because we all know Einstein's definition of insanity, and he's been trying this with an archaic offense and trying to out-talent everybody and be – I mean, Kentucky's still going to have 4 underclassmen drafted next month in the NBA draft. I mean, it's how it's going to play out, and you're going to look up and go, damn, why were they not better? And you know why? Maybe because in his mind they're sharing too many minutes and there's too much frustration and nobody gets in a flow. I don't know, but what he has been doing did not work. So
Right.
Do something different. So I mean, you're 100% right. There are speed bumps ahead of a plan of having 8 scholarship dudes and a whole lot of guys like me and you who can't guard a lick in the SEC. But what he was doing wasn't working, and he wasn't going to be able to recruit with the 11th hour changeover from Lexington to Fayetteville.
Right.
So, I mean, other than who he could take with him, I mean, ride or die. And this is what you got, Arkansas, because this is who you wanted.
Yeah, and I mean, and Wes said that. Oh God, where was I going with that? Gosh, sorry, I just blanked. But anyhow, yeah, it's an interesting idea. Now it'll bite him in the ass if injuries strike. But
Yeah, because if you get one guy get a high ankle sprain and misses a month, and I mean, I don't even know if they require you to go to class anymore, but what happens if some guy is not eligible I mean, or rolls an ACL. I mean, any number of those things, and you're down to 6 scholarship dudes for a 6-week stretch, and you're staring at, are we going to make the tournament? I
Right.
mean, and anything
I
short
think
of the tournament with the money Arkansas is pumping into that program is a failure. Period.
yeah, I mean, I think he at least needs to add a ninth or a 10th, and maybe not, you know, not your high 4-star guys. Just get you a 3-star Arkansas kid who loves to be a Razorback and can shoot the three, or maybe he's thinking of
Well,
getting
and
them.
the portal hadn't closed yet. I
Right. I
mean,
mean,
I
Cole,
mean, so when they look up this summer, who's to say he won't add? I mean,
Coleman Hawkins.
maybe he's floating this right now of, hey, if you're unhappy at Kansas State, if you're unhappy at Minnesota, if you're unhappy place X, and you want to come to Arkansas where we're going to run and gun and be on national TV 20 times a year, here you go. We've got scholarships available.
Yeah, Coleman Hawkins is in the portal now. He withdrew from the draft Wednesday. The Illinois player. I mean, he's an absolute stud. I don't think Wooga Poplar from Miami. I don't think he has decided where he is going, and he withdrew from the draft as well. So I mean, there's two big time studs, not necessarily for Arkansas, for whoever. I mean, the Gators have 2 scholarships available. I think they're going to try to go international with one of them. But yeah, so to update you on, the SEC teams in terms of the draft, we got our good news with Mark Sears and Stevenson. So Alabama is now loaded, and our good friends at Bet Online have them as the 8-1 favorite to win it all, followed by Kansas and UConn at 10-1. UConn got Caravan to come back, so they do have one starter coming back, and then it's Duke and Houston at 14-1, and the next shortest odds for an SEC team are actually Auburn and Arkansas share 25-1 odds. So great news for Bama, which I've already invested in. So I was thrilled that Sears is coming back. Florida gets Walter Clayton and Will Richard back. But like I said, they've got 2 scholarships available. Auburn has added Miles Kelly, a transfer from Georgia Tech, who averaged 13.9 points and 5.5 rebounds per game. Last year, Auburn has 1 scholarship left. Georgia has 2 scholarships left.
Is
Kentucky
it
has.
possible, Brian? Is it possible that Auburn is deeper this year than last year, which is crazy to think? I mean, you start talking about a couple 3 dudes they've added through the portal over the last month or so, and the guys they had who elected to come back. I'm not saying they're going to have. They may not have a single lottery player on that roster, but holy buckets, Bruce Pearl's going to run at you in platoons. I mean, they are going to run at you in waves.
Yeah, I haven't seen Tahad Pettiford, but I have read about him. That's the true freshman point guard coming in, and I think he's going to be really legit. You got Baker Mazzara, you got Broom, Pegues, the transfer. Yeah, Auburn. I think
Cardwell's coming back. I mean,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, they've got a handful of dudes that were recruited in Chuck Person's recruiting class. I mean, feels like those guys have been there for like I was a senior at Auburn when they got in there and took their official visits.
Yeah, I think in the SEC right now, Alabama's in their own tier, head and shoulders above everybody else. But I think Auburn is probably a clear second, and then we get your Texas A&M, Florida in that mix in like a third tier. But I think Alabama and Auburn are clearly 1 and 2, at least in my mind. All right, LSU and Mississippi State and Missouri and Oklahoma and Ole Miss are full. 13 scholarships used. Morrell decided to come back for Ole Miss. South Carolina's got room for 1. The Vols got Chaz Lanier from UNF last week, 44% from 3 last season, 19.7 points per game. A&M is full. Vandy is full. Texas has got 2 scholarships left. The Vols have 2 left, if I didn't say that. already. So, any there you go. Anything else on hoops before we talk about Destin?
Well, I mean, not overly. I think Tennessee enters a real crossroads considering how great they've been the last couple of years, and they've got a couple of dudes through the portal. But can we really expect any of them are going to replicate or replace what Dalton Knecht brought to that offense? Because Rick Barnes' team will guard always, and
Right.
they will play hard. But I got a real concern on how they're going to get north of 65 points.
I mean, I think they're right now maybe just a bubble team. But again, they've got 2 scholarships available, and maybe they're trying to get in on Coleman Hawkins. Maybe they got somebody international. I mean, I think the center from Ohio State they got in the portal. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Adu, but he did average. He's probably a better shot blocker than Adu. Averaged 2.4 blocks per game in the Big Ten, and they got a 6'10" guy from Charlotte. This Chaz Lanier can shoot the three. They got a guy from Hofstra who shot 39.9% from three and averaged
Is that
17.8
like
points.
Dalton Derringer or something like that?
Darlin Stone Dubar.
Yeah, there you go. And actually, if Kathleen and I had a third child, it was going to be Darling Stone DeBar Greeson.
Wasn't there a Fletch quote that I'm surprised you didn't? Babar.
Babar. Is that with one B or two?
What? I can't remember.
Babar. That's two. Oh, I thought you meant right there together. Using the whole fist there, Doc. Brother, you do not want to challenge me on this.
I had you use the whole fist there, Doc. Moon River. Yes. All right. That's right. Every time. All right. Destin, what anything strike your fancy? Scott Strickland dubbed when he was asked about FSU maybe coming to the SEC. He said, "Our friends in Tallahassee." I think that's a fireable offense among hundreds for him, but I digress. Whatever struck you in Destin, go ahead.
Well, a handful of things struck me in Destin. The litany of quotes where people in businesses like mine, in journalism and newspapers and TV and what we do for a living, and we talk about sports and try to share our opinions about it. There are a whole lot of important people with names that we all know who know jack squat about what is going to happen. Every question was met with just a riddle wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a fortune cookie. Greg Sankey gave nothing in terms of hard news. And the true fact that he's even hinting at the SEC being in a place where they are financially may have to consider cutting sports, cutting whatever sports. Oh, no, that has been whispered and rumored both from the Big Ten and the SEC. And maybe that's the all pause fear button that these folks are throwing out. But if you are in the Sun Belt and the SEC is hitting the call to arms, we've got to cost cut, we may not have walk-ons in football, we may not have a whole lot of other things, we may have to raise ticket prices. We're going to talk to the ESPN about the SEC adding a 9th conference game, and does that mean more in our TV deal? If the SEC is now looking like your grandmother Evelyn with a purse full of coupons to get tied 2 for 1, holy buckets, man! What is the A10 going to do? What is the FBS? What is the FCS going to do? If the SEC can't afford to truly pony up and revenue share,
why is he saying we're SEC's all of a sudden lacking?
Nobody said that directly, but nobody's denying it either. And I've actually heard a couple of ADs. Alabama's Greg Byrne was one of them. Everything's on the table. And he referenced including potentially cutting sports. Now, granted, that may be the wave the flag, scare everybody's pants off. We got to raise more money. We got to do this, that, and the other. Who knows? But if the SEC can't afford this, who the hell can?
Right? Yeah.
So
That's wild. That is wild. All right. It's Missouri Tigers Day. Are we ready? Do we need to do anything else before we get into Eli Drinkwitz and the Tigers?
before I let you set the table with the numbers and the research you've done, Eli Drinkwitz has been a hell of a lot better than I would have expected.
Yep.
And to a guy that let him put another, and I know we'll talk about the game by game and where we think, let him put another 9, 10, potentially 11 win season on the board. For God's sakes, they're preseason 9 in the country. To the magazine you had, that puts him in line for a potential playoff spot. That dude may have to turn down NFL jobs if he gets Missouri to a playoff spot.
You know, you just struck my fancy with that idea. Maybe that's a candidate for the Gators. It's kind of goofy, but I kind of like him.
Well, he's kind of goofy, and he's not afraid to
no,
draw a line in the sand and get in a press conference and go Spurrier-esque on somebody, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Colin. I mean, dude suffers no fools lightly.
Yes, no, I concur. Interesting. All right, so all right, here we go for the Bet Online menu for the Missouri Tigers to make the playoff. Plus 250, which is what we're getting at. That's not that big of a plus. Those are tied for the 17th shortest odds to make the CFP. To win the CFP, they're 33-1, which is tied for the 9th shortest odds. And there's a big difference there based on, schedules and conferences, etc. To win the SEC, 11-1, the 7th shortest odds. Season win total 9.5, shaded to the under at a minus 150 price. For the over, it's plus 120. Heisman odds, Brady Cook, the QB, 25-1 odds, which is tied for the 13th shortest odds. Luther Burden is at 80-1 odds. Now, they open with Murray State, an FCS opponent, so the lines for that game are not out. It probably won't be out until a couple of days before kickoff. And BetOnline did not have any games of the year involving Missouri, but there is another book, DraftKings, that did have 4 of their games of the year line. Mizzou is plus 4 at Texas A&M. That is on October 5th. Mizzou is minus 10 at home to Auburn on October 19th. And they are plus 8.5 at Bama the following week, October 26th. And they are minus 4 at home to Oklahoma the next week, after an open date, their next game, November 9th. So they get 2 weeks to prepare for Oklahoma. But I looked at Oklahoma. They play FCS opponent Maine in Norman. So they kind of have a semi-off date as well. All right. Any of those numbers strike you as attractive?
I'll give you one I kind of like. I would take a flyer on Brady Cook, and whether this schedule is amazingly doable, and I don't want to tip my cards when we go hand by hand or game by game, but this may be the softest schedule in the SEC.
Yeah.
And this is a guy, Brady Cook last year, completed better than 66% of his passes, had a passer rating that was fractionally right behind Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers has to replace all of his skill position dudes. Brady Cook gets his top 2 wide receivers back. They replenish the running back room through the portal. Brady Cook's QB rating was better than Michael Penix, which tells me the Falcons will spend a top 12 pick on Brady Cook because we can't have too many good backup quarterbacks in Atlanta. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who takes care of the football, who now has had 10, 12, 14, 18 career starts. I mean, let me ask you this. Guys like Carson Beck, guys like Jalen Milroe, guys like Quinn Ewer have much more prolific names. I don't know how much better those dudes are than Brady Cook. And you're going to tell me they get this schedule with a guy who could be as good as any quarterback in the league? I mean, Carson Beck is projected the top 3 draft pick. Carson Beck's playing with an NFL roster. I mean,
look,
I am high on Brady Cook. I am going to be high on Missouri all next year.
I agree. I mean, and Luther Burden might be the best receiver in the country, and Theo Weiss is a hell of a number 2 target. And they've got they feel like they've got an emerging star in the tight end Brett Norfleet, who's a 6'7" target as a true freshman, 18 catches, 197 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So if he can, and again, you mentioned the portal guys at the running back position. I mean, Marcus Carroll was 10th in the nation at Georgia State last year. He was 10th in the nation in rushing yards. And Nate Noel, the transfer from App State, he's got 3,074 career rushing yards in 4 years with the Mountaineers, 18 rushing touchdowns, 5.7 yards per carry. So they're not Corey Schrader, but they're both pretty doggone good with plenty of experience, and it's wanting to shine in the SEC to polish their NFL stock.
Well, and to that end, though, another reason to be bullish on Brady Cook is without that bell cow running back, how much more of the offense is Eli Drinkwitz going to put in a very experienced, very trusting, very trustworthy quarterback? Because I remember you and I talking, whether it was on radio shows or podcast all last year, he went like 8 weeks without throwing an interception.
Yes,
and then had a nightmare game. Didn't he have 4 against LSU or something? Or was he against somebody that he just I mean, it was a turnover after turnover after turnover, because he finished with a 21-6 TD to INT ratio, and I think 3 of them came in one game.
I think you're right. It does ring a bell, but I'm not. I haven't looked at his. I'm not looking at his game log, and I don't think it was at Georgia. I don't. I feel like he played pretty good that game. Anywho, another thing and he had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. I mean, he's a dual threat. Get it done with his legs as well. Okay, just in terms of what they did recruiting wise. So according to 247 Sports Composite, the number 21 ranked recruiting class nationally, 36 commits, 1 5-star, 11 4-stars, 23 3-stars, and 247 Sports Composite ranks them 14th in terms of transfer specific guys. 4 of those guys are 4-stars. One, Caden Green, who was a Missouri kid who went to Oklahoma, started 5 games as a true freshman, did not give up a sack. He started at offensive guard for the Sooners, but I think they're going to move him to tackle. They lost Rakestraw, the cornerback, and the other corner that went to the NFL, but they got Toriano Pride from Clemson. He is a 4-star transfer who has in his first 2 seasons at Clemson 30 tackles, 8 pass breakups, a pick, 2 TFLs, 1 sack. The other 4-star, Darius Smith, edge rusher at Georgia for 2 years, wasn't able to really get much playing time, but that's not necessarily an insult on Georgia's D-line. And the other 4-star is Jeremiah Beasley, who's actually a true freshman. He signed with Michigan, enrolled early for spring practice, didn't like it up there, and has now transferred. I mentioned the 2 running backs, but they've got some other guys that are 3-stars that I think are gonna be pretty good. A linebacker from South Alabama, Khalil Jacobs. They also got a D lineman from Georgia Tech, Eddie Kelly. They got a 6'8", 318 pound offensive tackle from SMU and Marcus Bryant, and yeah, so they got some dudes, and I'm sorry, they got Chris McClellan, who played was a 4-star out of high school and played for the Gators the last 2 years, and has some experience, so that adds some depth to the D line. Yeah, they're going to be good. Anything else you wanted to hit on personnel wise before we jump into this schedule?
Well, a couple of things that I think are important. Uh, Nobody has the in-state recruiting edge, and I know that'll change some with Texas coming into the SEC. But the two teams that have the clear recruiting edge in the traditional model of the SEC are the Gators and the Bulldogs. Georgia's got great high school football. LSU has great high school football. All of those are traditionally well known. Man, St. Louis has a ton of dudes.
And he's starting to get
And
them.
yeah, and Drinkowitz is getting them in the living room with a whole lot of guys who he's keeping in state. And that, I mean, man, I think Missouri with their schedule, because here's the other thing. There's no Ole Miss on that schedule. There's no Georgia on that schedule. There's no Texas on that schedule. So we talked last week about not knowing necessarily how this tiebreaker, you want to talk about a tiger in the punch bowl. Let Missouri win against Alabama, and they're going to be right there in the whispers and conversations about who's going to be in Atlanta come the first weekend in December.
And here's the scheduling. Oh, and I'm sorry. Before I get to that scheduling note, like you were talking about, they got their top recruit. Now, he wasn't in for the spring, which I kind of don't like that. Wish he would have enrolled early. Williams, I know I'm butchering this pronunciation. No, maybe the N silent. Waneri. Okay, he was the number one player in the state of Missouri, the number 2 edge rusher in the country, and the number 6 overall player in the country. They got that guy. They also got a very high 4-star Courtney Crutchfield, wide receiver from Arkansas, who's the second best player in the state of Arkansas and the number 43 player in the country. So those are 2 of the freshmen they're hoping to have an impact. I mentioned how they're +4 at Texas A&M at DraftKings. They get 2 weeks to prepare for that game, whereas A&M is coming off the rivalry game with Arkansas, obviously at Jerry's World, and it'll be the 6th game in 6 weeks for A&M. So there's a scheduling spot, even though it's at A&M, that they get 2 weeks to prepare, and A&M coming off a rivalry game. So yeah, the schedule.
Well,
go ahead.
as we look at the schedule, they got 5 months to prepare, because the first 4 games are dumps.
Right. This is true. And so, yeah, I mean, the first 4 games, I mean, they're favored. I mean, how much are they? I mean, they're favored by it.
All right, if we're going to go through this, they're favored by 4+ touchdowns against Murray State at home. They're going to be favored by 4 touchdowns against Buffalo.
17-21 against BC and Vandy.
Absolutely. So you're talking about 3+ scores, all home games from the season opener to September 21st. You then get an off week, great off week, to rest before your first road game against Texas A&M, who you just said is coming off of an Arkansas game that you know as well as I do, Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino are dying for some sort of galvanizing, emotional, get everybody to call the Hogs type of win, and that could be it at the end of September.
Even when Arkansas sucks, they usually play A&M tough.
I'm scared of Arkansas because Bobby Petrino. I do not want Bobby Petrino watching my kids when I got to go out of town, but I do want Bobby Petrino calling my plays for my football team in game. No, there are not many people who call better ball plays than Bobby Petrino.
And then after the A&M game, they got to go on the road. Where are they going? UMass.
Oh, the impossible task of seeing Marcus Camby and Lou Joe or whatever his name was, the power forward at UMass.
Oh man, yeah, at UMass, and look, I'll go ahead and say I like them +4 at A&M
I
too.
do too. No,
So
I'm
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 6-0
I'm
right there.
yep, 6-0, 7-0 UMass. They get Auburn at home.
No,
Th-
UMass makes 6-0, and they're -10 to Auburn. That would be the 7th game.
so if
Seven and
you're
zero
talking 7-0 before you have to go play your toughest game of the season
in T-Town.
in T-Town,
See who Alabama's got the previous week. Oh, Alabama's off a rivalry game at Tennessee the week before. Yeah, this schedule
wow.
work. This schedule
This
works.
schedule works,
This,
brother.
the
Because then
fir-
they get an off week before Oklahoma.
yes, yes. Then the off week comes at another perfect time, and
And then you finish with three of the biggest question marks, and potentially, with the exception of Vandy, three teams that could finish at the bottom of the SEC in South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas.
I like over 9.5 at a +120
I
return.
love 9.5 at +120.
Yes. All right.
I
We're on.
mean, you and I are high on Ole Miss, and Greg Sankey is he's gonna go old school Greek Roman emperor or Roman Caesar and have like a big cup of arsenic if it's Ole Miss and Missouri in the SEC championship.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Well, they'll have nobody to blame but the schedule makers.
100%, 100%.
They will have nobody to blame.
Now they'll sell every ticket, but it'll get like a 2.6 rating. Hey, speaking of TV ratings, and one of the reasons that the SEC is probably doing a whole lot of hand wringing, I read this the other day. Do you know over the last 3 years, the Fox Big Noon Kickoff has averaged more viewers than the CBS 3:30 window?
No, I did not know that.
The Fox Big Noon Kickoff has drawn more eyeballs, and I think a big reason why is because Alabama and Georgia have pissed on the rest of the league for a long time.
Yeah.
And so everybody looks up and goes, okay, it's 28-7 midway through the second quarter. Let's click off and go see what else is on a college football Saturday, because, I mean,
it's going to be an ass beating on CBS.
Yeah. And of course, CBS is going to get Alabama and Georgia just in case one of those games gets close.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Do you have any? I finally had a couple NBA winners last night. I had the Mavs and the over. Finally, haven't been.
I broke up with the NBA.
Oh,
I just said I especially broke up with that series. I missed every pick in that series. I probably would have bet Minnesota last night.
Yeah,
I just said no. You know what? Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh.
Did go 3-0 in baseball.
There you go.
Yankees are treating me well, and I'm betting against the Braves because they are spiraling.
Acuna.
That's a painful injury.
Yeah.
A painful injury, because that's a guy who makes the entire club go.
But didn't they win the World Series the last time he got hurt?
Yep. But they also had Freddie Freeman in the dugout to pick up the mess. I think one of the things moving forward, I do like Boston and even I would even say fewer than 6. I love the matchups, especially Luka and Kyrie Irving have been tremendous. I mean, last night they go for what, 68? They each had 34 or something. Just they average better than 60 through that entire Western Conference Finals. But Boston has 2 tremendous defensive point guards in Holiday and White.
Wow.
Jason Tatum is long enough and quick enough to be a real headache for Luka, and that then allows who's going to account for Jaylen Brown if you're starting to go star to star and go accordingly. And if Kristaps Porzingis comes back and they get a real stretch 5, I don't see how I just don't see how Dallas is deep enough to keep up with them, especially giving up home court.
So Boston won both head-to-head meetings on January 22nd. They won 119 to 110 as 2.5-point favorites at Dallas. And then when they had the rematch in Boston, they absolutely smoked them. Where's 138 to 110 as an 8.5 point home favorite. And that was 72 combined last night by Luka and Kyrie, 36 apiece. I like over 214.5 in game one, which, by the way, is not until Thursday, 6 days from now.
That helps Dallas, though, with Luka's bum ankle and.
Yep. Yeah. Tatum is the minus 120 favorite to win NBA Finals MVP. Doncic, Luka is at plus 210. Jaylen Brown plus 600. Kyrie at 20 to 1. I don't trust Boston. I mean, I think the Pacers could conceivably could have been up 3-1. So I'm not saying Dallas is going to win the series, but I like the Mavs plus 6 in game one. They've been underdogs 7 times in the playoffs, 6-1, both straight up and against the spread, and they've gone on the road 9 times in the playoffs, 7-2, both straight up and against the spread. So I'm going with Mavs plus 6 in the over in game one. So there's that, but I haven't been very good other than last night. So do with that what you wish. You got any baseball or anything you like tonight?
I have not studied the numbers. I have not cracked it down, but I will say the best moneymaker is the divide between. There are a handful of elite teams in Major League Baseball: the Orioles, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Dodgers. Explore those options first, especially on the run line, because you can get close to even money at giving up a run and a half with some of those favorites. And you can just look in the ledger about the scoring margin and the run differential. They're not only winning these games, they're winning these games big. So I wouldn't pay the heavy weight of Phillies, Dodgers, Yankees at the minus 210, minus 225 number. I would rather go on the run line and get closer to even money.
All right. So before we get out of here,
what about those guys in their underwear who fight on the weekends? They got one of those?
You knew where I was going. Yes. UFC 302 in Newark, New Jersey, Saturday night. Islam Makhachev defending his lightweight 155-pound belt against Dustin Poirier, the pride of Lafayette, Louisiana. My heart will be rooting for my boy Dustin, but my brain says Islam Makhachev by submission, which the other day was even money, and I'm looking it up now. It's still even money at FanDuel. And then let's also go under 1.5 rounds for a plus 130 return, because if Dustin wins, it'll be by knockout in the first round or early in the second. And Makhachev just finished Volkanovski in round one, and has got a lot of early finishes on his resume. I'm going to go with a 3-leg parlay with Kevin Holland, Randy Brown, and Jailton Almeida. And that parlay, depending on the prices you get, and they're kind of all over the place, should get back about plus 160 to plus 175. That's 3 fairly heavy favorites. And one more, Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. Let's go under 1.5 rounds at a minus 120 price. Why? Because Almeida, 20 of his 23 fights have finished under 1.5. All right.
Well, you and I met working at the Marietta Journal right outside of Atlanta. I grew up in Smyrna, Georgia, right outside of Marietta. Is that Alexander Romanov? He's from the Smyrna Romanovs, right? He grew up right over there, right across the street from me, right?
The third cousin might have been in Smyrna.
Okay. I was curious if that was the Smyrna Romanovs as opposed to maybe the St. Petersburg's Romanovs.
I really doubt it. I really doubt it. All right. Tell them about Jay's plays. And
Jay's Plays is my afternoon email. Riding the roller coaster of late. It's not called investing. It's called gambling for a reason. Last night was good to me. Night before, it took a sharp stick to the eye. It happens. You can also catch up with the 5 at 10, my morning column at Times Free Press, every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. It's 5 things in the world. Today we talked about Donald Trump's convictions, what the Braves could do, and who is the greatest athlete of the 21st century in our Friday mailbag. So,
the 21st. Oh, that's interesting.
It's hard not to pick LeBron.
That's what I was just about to say.
I mean, well, and whether you like him or loathe him. And
well, what about Brady? Brady, though.
Brady's the most accomplished athlete, maybe. Certainly in team sports. But I tell you, Michael Phelps needs to be in that discussion too now. That's a dude who pulled a whole lot of gold out of a whole lot of swimming pools over a whole lot of years. So it's a fun conversation we have every Monday through Friday morning at 10 a.m. at timesfreepress.com.
Good stuff. All righty. Blake and Max should be pleased with us today. We're not running too long. Appreciate you listening. For Jay Greeson, Brian Edwards. Who are we going to talk next week? It's about we've done the Longhorns, we've done Mizzou.
Have we done Tennessee?
We have not. It's at either LSU or Tennessee next week.
Ooh, dealer's choice. We can check Brian's Twitter feed at vegasbedwards.com. He'll announce it next Wednesday or Thursday. Deal?
Yep, deal. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next Friday. We are over and out.